is 6:30, so we will get this meeting started. Can I get a roll call, please?
Abernathy? Everson?
Here.
Huffman? Keelish?
Here.
Noon?
Here.
Tyner?
Here.
Waters?
Here.
Alright, we have a quorum, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then followed by prayer. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this great day we've had today. Let us be reminded that all we have, all we possess is because of you. Let us not take that for granted. In your name we pray. Amen.
Alright, next we will have the public hearing, and I will need a motion to pause the regular meeting and open public hearing on the utility rate increase. Motion by Jim, second by Sammy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. If you have something you would like to share or anything to say, please come forward to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Matt Tuggy, Fred Gould, back again. So just want to thank you all again for holding this public meeting, allow us to give a chance to kind of make our public comment here. And just my purpose for coming before you today is to ask that you table this vote for the water rate increase specifically, and to compel the mayor and the utilities office and Reedy Financial to provide evidence to support their proposal of a major change from a multi-tier water flow rate to a one-tier water flow rate. In the June 9th meeting, the mayor stated that 70 to 80% of municipalities use a one-tier water flow rate. I did some research on my own and was hardly finding any one-tier rates for any municipalities. So we engaged Baker Tilly to help us with their expertise and their experience. In the memo that I think all of you have had, but I have a copy. In the memo that Baker Tilly prepared, it references a 2025 study where they studied 370 municipalities, and 97% of those municipalities use a multi-tier flow rate for water. The mayor's statement was not correct. Last meeting, it was also said that Citizens Water Services in Indianapolis uses a one-tier water flow rate. I found that only the residential users have a one-tier rate. Commercial and industrial users in Indianapolis have a multi-tier flow rate, and in fact, those two separate schedules are lower than the residential schedule. Why is it that 97% of utilities water utilities use a multi-tier water flow rate structure, but the current proposal is to change it to a one-tier? What is the cost of service basis for such a change? The Okra grant timing is creating a sense of urgency for the need to pass this ordinance tonight. Admittedly, we've attempted to get clarity from the mayor's office as well as directly from Okra regarding the specific timeline constraints. We've not received any responses, or at least from Okra, they basically said it's to the local municipalities to kind of control the rate timing. We did look at the $750,000 grant that was awarded, and to get that at that level, the user rates for 4,000 gallons needs to be in the $30 to $50 range, which Elwood currently is, even with current rates. Now, if the duly built project is the source of the Okra funding, and the reason for the rush, is it possible that the city could narrow the current proposal to the bare minimum for the Okra funding I'm concerned that the delay in compiling and presenting information to the council and the communication of a hard deadline for OBRA is giving the impression to the council that they have no choice but to pass this tonight. It is not the fault of the council that they have been presented insufficient cost of service documentation and support for the proposal of a single-tier water flow rate. Being provided one option that is a sudden and significant change, a change to an unusual rate structure that is as compared to not only similar communities, but 97% of all water utilities statewide, with a supporting report that provides no analysis of a cost of service basis or comparable rate study should be concerning. Being told that you have to pass it as presented, or the city loses $750,000 of grant money is unfair and may potentially be misleading. You've not been provided enough information to do this tonight. I encourage the council to ask Reedy questions before making a motion to vote. Has the council been given access to ask questions of Reedy before today? I encourage the council to request Baker Tilly and Reedy to engage to reconcile any deficiencies in the report, as these reports are highly technical. We have found other reports that Reedy has prepared for municipalities with residential, commercial, and industrial users, and those reports recommended a multi-tier flow rate structure and showed how those municipalities compare to others. Why has Reedy recommended multi-tier flow rates to other jurisdictions and municipalities, but now for Elwood it's suggesting a single tier? What is the cost of service basis for this recommendation? Why did the report not compare how rates for Elwood today and after the change would compare to other municipalities? Why is such a large change not being phased in as many communities have done? The mayor stated multiple times that a one-tier system ensures that everyone pays their fair share, and it prevents residential users from subsidizing high-volume users. I'm concerned that these statements are being used only as marketing statements that sound good to the voting public, but have little basis in fact. No cost of service analysis has been done to determine each user's fair share of the cost. I hope grocery stores don't abandon their current cost-based approach and start charging the same per ounce for a 24-pack of soda as they do for a 12-pack, or even a single can. Volume discounts exist in areas where there is a cost basis for doing so, like water utilities. Without a study proving otherwise, this specific water rate increase should not be passed, period, but certainly not tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Tibby. Does anyone from the council have any questions for Mr. Tibby while he's up here? You said, I have one. You said, you found that there was 97% where there was still a multi-tier rate
For water.
for
yes.
water?
Well, and I will say that is based on a 2025 study that Baker Tilly did, which surveyed 370 municipalities in the state of Indiana. My personal research, I didn't find 370, but I focused my research in the 6,000 to 10 to 15,000 population, just trying to get a decent comparability to Elwood, and found, I think, one that has a single tier, but it's Hunter Town. It's a suburb of Fort Wayne that doesn't have much industry, actually. Doesn't have any industrial, but has maybe some light commercial, dairy, McDonald's. But I think they mostly have residential, which is probably why they have a single tier. But everybody else was a multi-tier flow rate. For water, just to be very clear.
And then would you kind of repeat what you had said about the Okra?
So on the Okra funding, and again, we tried to educate ourselves as much as possible on the Okra. We have not been able to find enough information for me to feel like an expert at all. But what we found is there's a schedule that kind of matches. So for projects over $1 million, the reward is sort of based on the user rates that you charge for the municipality per 4,000 gallons. And so the $750,000 grant is right in that user rate for $30 to $50 per 4,000 gallons. And that is and sewage. So, from our calculations, and again, we could be off, but it looks like currently, before the proposal, it's at $49.31 per 4,000 gallons, which would put it squarely in that bracket. There could be other things going on that's driving the urgency, which is why we asked the question, because we don't understand it. But from what we're seeing, from what we found, it seems like the rate, I think the comment in the last meeting was that the rates needed to be passed in order for this to move forward with Oak Road. Now, maybe there's a little differential and it has something to do with something else tangentially related to Oak Road. That's not how it was communicated.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Tibby? Okay. He may call you back up, but thank you. And I apologize, my voice is, I yelled a little too loud at basketball nationals this weekend. All right. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Todd Jones, City of Elwood. How many of you council members received the email from Madam Clerk on the ordinances that you would be voting on tonight? Just show of hands. How many of you understood what you would be voting on tonight? Show of hands. How many of you received the Reedy study that was presented in an email along with the sources, how they came up with the rates, their entire study, in an email as well? Show of hands. So, all 5 of you. Okay. Let's forget about all of that for a minute. How many of you received the Baker Tilly email from Matt Tebby on June 24th at 7:55? Show of hands. So all of you. So Reedy Financial has been our financial advisors for the City of Elwood since 2012. They were with us, with Madam Clerk, with me when I was on the council, and have been with us this entire time, overseeing the civil city, overseeing our utilities, and overseeing our redevelopment. Baker Tilly has put together a package that was sent to you guys, that was provided for Red Bull, and I'd like to point out some things in this packet. Take a look. Page number 3, where it says objectives. When performing a cost of service study, it is important to consider the specific needs of the utility being analyzed, as utilities can vary significantly in terms of size, regulatory requirements, and customer base. Figure 1.2 below identifies the utility's primary objectives for the cost of service study, which are based on previous discussions with utility management. Those discussions weren't with this utility management. But what it says, fairness. Reducing interclass subsidies by shifting the cost back to fire protection and high-volume users. Developing cost-based rates adjustable, which are equitable and defensible. Number 2 is affordability. Maintaining affordability, particularly for residential users. Keeping water rates competitive with other local communities. And number 3 was simplicity. Simplifying a rate structure to reduce billing software errors, enhancing understandability for customers. So what was presented initially from Madam Clerk covers all 3 of these things. Do you agree? Then let's look furthermore into page number 4, where it says recommended rate structure. As a result, a more appropriate rate structure is detailed in figure 2.1. So we put together a rate structure in figure 2.1, as page 4 says. And then we're going to move to page number 5, where it says, observations. The residential customer will only see a slight increase in their monthly bills of 2% in most cases. Again, I'll direct you back to page number 3, where it talks about maintaining affordability for residential users. Shifting costs back to high volume users. And that's exactly what the proposal that Reedy put together is doing. Now we want to talk about everybody up here understanding that we have to raise utility rates. Is that a fair statement? Everybody up here realizes that we need to raise our rates to stay competitive, be able to fix our infrastructure, invest in the future, our projects, stay along with the IDEM agreed order. Currently, Red Gold uses 41% of our consumption. The revenue is between 13 and 14%. The rest of that shortage is picked up by residential users, smaller users. How many of you up here that have a utility bill are comfortable paying somebody else's water? Because if you are, I'll start sending you mine. So we want to talk about Red Gold and the objections that they have to this rate. The proposed rates are too high for large industrial users. The proposed rates are not based on the ability to pay or historical pricing. They're based on the cost of service allocation principles that Baker Tilly has talked about. Who puts the most demand on the system needs to pay their fair share. The new fair share by the structure that was given to you, Red Gold would pay 34% of the 41% that they use. That's not a hard ask. It's not that we're overcharging them. We're not even charging them the entire amount that they're using. Number 2, we want to talk about the increase of disproportionate to other classes. The rate changes appear disproportionate only when viewed against subsidies rather than the actual cost of responsibility. Indiana Utilities practice recognize that high volume users create the peak demands. Large users require greater transmission, greater treatment, and more capacity in our infrastructure. Cost responsibility is not per linear gallon, it's capacity driven. We're going to talk about objection number 3. The methodology may discourage industrial economic development. The city's not implementing this to punish economic development. The proposed structure does not impose a penalty. It's assigned on cost based for the system demand. The utility must remain financially sustainable for all users. Under recovering costs from a major user puts a higher burden on residential customers. It defers infrastructure investment and it's increased long-term rate totality. Objection number 4, alternative rate designs could achieve similar revenue with less impact. All that does is preserve existing subsidies and shifting costs elsewhere rather than trying to eliminate them. What we were trying to do with this proposal was to eliminate the difference and disparity and the subsidies between residential users and high demand users. In closing, the proposed rate structure, it does not recover more than what the customer's usage share is. It reduces the long-standing interclass subsidies that we've had since the utilities have been created. This aligns more, even more closely than the cost of services principle, which is you pay for what you use. It treats all customers based on system demand rather than historical legacy pricing, and the city is not increasing rates arbitrarily. It's correcting a structural imbalance that's happened for way too many years. Tonight I have Mike Kleinpeter, who is our Oak Grant administrator. I have Reedy Financial Advisors with us, and then I have our bond counsel, Zachary Klutz from TACT.
So if the council would have any further questions, we can direct it to those individuals.
Alright, I will interject here as I have something that I have prepared to say as well. As council president, I sent several questions regarding the utility rate increase, trying to prepare for the vote tonight, and did not receive answers. So I will ask them here. I would like to know what the process was to prepare for this in years past, because I myself am having a hard time coming to this vote with the information that we have now. And yes, it was provided, but also in the last couple meetings, there has been numerous amount of information shared with us from stakeholders and multiple advisors, and a lot to digest. I know there is a substantial grant in place for the wastewater project, and per Glenn's words in his emails, this rate increase needs to be put in place to make sure that we don't lose the grant money. But help me and the rest of this council understand the planning for this project and the grant, since we did not have a seat at the table. Was there a failure in planning for this phase of the project? Was there a vote on a previous council that did not pass to raise the utility rates to better prepare for this, rather than hitting our taxpayers and our large consumers all at once? If not, then I feel that we have failed our taxpayers and failed the city, because now this council is being faced with making a vote, and in my opinion, we have not been transparent with our key stakeholders, which is our taxpayers, and what they're about to experience when they get their next bill. Like other government, why were we not adding a small percentage annually to accommodate for growth, inflation, and projects? And speaking with Ms. Basham today, I do understand that we can't always project what the next phase of the project is gonna cost, but at least if we were doing a small percentage increase, it wasn't gonna hit the large consumers, but more importantly, our taxpayers all at once. And although $20 to $25 may not seem like a lot to some people, it is to a lot of people. If we value this grant as much as everyone appears, then we should have had our ducks in a row and been informing our taxpayers ahead of time about the importance of this rate increase, grant, and project, and why the rate increase is necessary. Has anything went out in the last couple utility bills or been shared on social media informing them that the administration is looking at a rate increase? If not, then why not? And if we didn't at least share it on social media, then I have a real concern with our priorities with our social media. If we can share everything else, why wouldn't we share the importance of our public hearings? As we all know, this is probably the largest public hearing that we've had on this, and mostly from our large consumers are in the audience. If this was so important, we should have been sharing this information with the taxpayers so that they could be here and know that how it is going to affect them. And if they chose not to come, then that's fine. In my opinion, I feel this council is being put in a bad position. If we vote this down, we potentially lose grant money. If we vote to accept it, then we're failing our constituents who are going to be faced with financial instabilities and potential disconnections. I understand that this eliminates residential users subsidizing the large consumers, and I understand the importance of this project, but I have a real problem with the lack of transparency that we provided to the taxpayers. Why wasn't there better planning for this project with it coming in the pipeline? So that it wasn't such a financial impact to the city if it didn't pass, but more importantly, to our users. I brought this up a year ago, as I said a year ago, that when we have these big projects, it would be nice if we were at the table so that we had these discussions and could better prepare and work together in planning as well as our messaging. Mr. Tibby from Red Gold had requested a report from Reedy regarding the usage patterns on different water users, and to my knowledge, it wasn't provided. I don't think we were provided a copy of it. It was mentioned in the last meeting by the mayor that Red Gold had requested from the mayor that there were other municipalities of similar size that had moved to a one-tier system, but I also did not receive that information myself. It was also mentioned in an email that was going back and forth between, not between us, but between Red Gold and the city, that the city had filed for another extension to the Okra grant or deadline since the last meeting, which was news to me because I did not know that we potentially filed for another extension. So if we did, I had asked for a copy and an update on that and did not receive that as well. Our goal as a council is to make sure that we all have all the information to ensure that we are making the best decision for all of our constituents. And at this point, I don't feel like I'm comfortable moving forward until our questions are answered. Because the only people who are gonna take the blame for this are us five. And we had no say in what was happening and weren't giving any other alternative. Also, when I spoke to Christy and I also spoke to Allie today, they did inform me that there was a potential for a phased approach of rolling this out. I know originally we were going to, the taxpayers would see this on their next bill in August, I believe, which is right around the corner, which is one of my major concerns. But if there is a potential slow rollout or phased rollout, then I think we should explore those options.
So at the very beginning, I asked for a show of hands of who read the package that was sent out by Madam Clerk and if they understood what they were voting on. The ordinance rate that you guys were presented on Wednesday, if you look down at section F, I believe it is, I don't have the ordinance in front of me. Madam Clerk, do you have the ordinance I can look at? Excuse me, it was section 12. It says effective date application. Public hearing. Section 12.2, water rates and charges. The water rates and charges in section 3, including the increased first tier usage rate and the minimum charge schedule shall apply to bills first rendered on or after. That was intentionally left blank, President New, for the council to determine when that was going to roll out. So if you would have noticed that when you read the packet.
I did read it, thank you, but it was also communicated in other meetings that it would go into effect in August, and that was discussed today.
But this was sent to you on Wednesday.
I understand that.
And it was blank.
Right.
Okay. So we are giving you the option to phase it in.
Okay.
We want to talk about the Okra grant. The Okra grant was opened, the bids were opened on April 5th. Is that correct?
April 6th.
April 6th, excuse me. You have 90 days from when the bids are opened to accept the bids to move on. 90 days puts this council at July 5th, and those bids would no longer be valid. Mr. Kleinpeter has the bids that were opened, and Mr. Kleinpeter, if you'd like to come forward and talk about the bid that we accepted from Watson's Excavating, compared to the next second bid that was available, there's a $500,000 difference. And I'll turn the microphone over to Mr. Kleinpeter, who wrote the grant.
Good evening, Council. Mike Kleinpeter, Kleinpeter Consulting Group. The mayor is correct. When bids were open on April 6th, a bid tabulation was circulated by DCCM, the engineering for the project. At the time, the low bid was Watson Excavating, $1,254,150. We're allowed to hold that bid for 90 days per the engineer. What happens after that 90 days is the contractor, and Mr. Graham, correct me if I misstate something here, but the contractor has a right to pull their bid and not hold it anymore. The second lowest bid was $1,787,000, and that was from F.A. Wilhelm. Now, Watson could hold their bid. We don't know if they will or not, but that is one of the things that's at risk. I've heard some questions about timing, so if the council would like, I can talk a little bit about timing of the Okra grant so we're all on the same page. Back on April 9th of 2025, we held a public hearing about applying for the Okra grant. We answered questions from the public. Then on June 2nd, we held a second public hearing, answered questions from the public, and at that time, council passed a resolution stating that if we got $750,000, they would commit the matching funds for the project. Since then, DCCM, the engineer, so then we were awarded the grant. That was in June 2nd. We had the second public hearing. We were awarded the grant on August 21st of 2025. Once Okra awards a grant, they give you what's called a grant agreement. That's the legal binding contract between the municipality and the state. In that grant agreement, it has deadlines that have to be met for the project. In our grant agreement, which I have a copy of with me here today, we had a release of funds deadline of April 30th. What that means is we're supposed to be closed on our loan, submit it to Okra saying we've got our matching funds, we've got everything ready to go, April 30th. We didn't hit that deadline because DCCM, the engineer, was still working on final design. We were still working with Reedy Financial on where we were going to close the loan at, questions like that. So at that time, we asked for a 60-day extension from April 30th to June 30th. That was our first extension request. That was approved by Okra. Then, we're not going to be closed by June 30th per the last meeting, so then we had to submit another request to Okra to extend another 30 days. So we are now 2 extensions into our Okra grant. We don't know how many extensions Okra will give us. You know, Okra is a good community partner. They want to work with us, but they also have timeliness they've got to meet because this is federal money coming to them, so they continue to get their money yearly. So that's kind of the dates of where we were and how we got here. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. The gentleman from Red Gold presented a chart that had 30 to 50 on it. What that chart is it determines how much grant money you're eligible at the very start of the project. So when I'm getting ready to apply back last June, I look at that chart and I say, are our water and sewer rates in the $30 to $50 column combined? If so, we're eligible for $750,000. So that's what that chart he was referring to is. That just determines how much grant money you're eligible for. Once you apply and you're awarded, that chart has no impact on your grant.
So was there an additional extension filed since our last couple of public meetings?
So there was an extension filed, and I can tell you the dates here, but the first extension gave us April 30th. The second extension was filed to give us until July 30th now. So our current deadline for Okra to be closed is July 30th. But, just as a reminder, our 90-day bid hold is going to expire before then.
That expires on the 5th.
That expires on July 5th.
Have we been in contact with them to see if they would extend their bid hold?
That is not something that I do. That would be an engineer question. The engineer takes care of the bids. I have not heard anything.
It's me again. So council, we want to talk about other cities and how they do their structures. Who we need to be worried about is the city of Elwood. Our ratepayers, our users. Because as you all did a show of hands, all the rates, you understood the rates needed to be increased. Not one of you raised your hand wanting to pay someone else's bill. If we did a structure that was across the board that Mrs. Basham did figure, how much more would utility rates go up for residential users?
On the average, it would be probably another $15 to $30 on top of what the increase is.
So increasing approximately 20, another
I don't
15.
know what the rate structure is to say definitively what that would be.
So 20 to another 15 or 30. I'll give you some examples of some cities that have done similar bill structures on what we're looking at. The most recent was the city of Bloomington. They looked at their high demand users and put more of their cost on it. It recently went to litigation, and the high demand users lost. Bloomington's cost of service found that residential customers had been historically paying more than their cost of service, while other customer classes paid less than their cost of service. The city reallocated costs so the rates better reflected each customer class' actual impact on the system. City of Columbus. Baker Tilly prepared a cost of service rate study recommending rates based on each customer class share of the system cost rather than maintaining historical subsidies. East Chicago, Illinois also references Baker Tilly. Prepared a cost of services study to allocate water utility costs among customer classes according to accepted utility rate making policies, which was what I referenced in the very beginning of Baker Tilly's report on page 3. Fort Wayne, the city's utility periodically updates rates through cost of services analysis that assign costs based on customer demand, meter size, consumption, rather than across the board subsidies. Indianapolis, Indiana. Citizens Energy Group uses cost of service principles in establishing water and wastewater rates, recognizing that larger users create different system demands than the typical residential customers. Let's look outside Indiana. Fremont, Ohio. It uses an increased usage charge for large industrial customers, with major users such as Heinz Ketchup paying substantially more as consumption increases. Naples, Florida, Clearwater, Florida, all of these are consistent, their approach is consistent with the guidance of municipal consultants that have promoted a cost of service rate making under that methodology. You know, and Councilwoman Noon, President Noon, you had sent the email talking about water on phase 3, and I sent back an email to you. Were you talking about water? Because that's
You
not,
knew what I was talking about.
or was it wastewater? Because we're talking about two different things. So I just
There's
want
only
to.
one project we're referring to, so you know what I was
That's not
talking
true. We're doing a wastewater phase 3 with IDEM, the agreed order, the update of the sewage plant. That's one of the projects we're doing. And then we're also doing a water project. So
Well, you
there's two.
still didn't answer the rest of my questions.
Because I wanted to make sure you knew what you're talking about.
So answer this, was there a previous rate increase introduced that didn't get approved prior to this council sitting here to prepare for these projects coming?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And why do we not do a percentage every year or something like that? Obviously, none of us wanna raise anyone's bills, but now this is a substantial amount to a lot of people.
2% residential is according to Baker Tilly. So, but with that being said, you know, the same council that was sitting in the seats that you guys are didn't want to raise rates any higher and have people paying for things. So they were trying to keep their cost increase as low as what we're trying to ask you guys to keep the cost down. Sammy, I think you've sat in that seat to know that. Kim, I think you've sat in that seat to know that. Jim, were you on 2019? And it was the same way. We tried to keep the impact as low as possible.
We had looked at Fremont, Ohio. The meter sizes are larger as you get larger, but there are commodity charges. The rates are $6.80 for residential, $5.87 for commercial, 0 to 100 CCU, and then $4.43, and then a large user $3.75. So it tiers down.
And what's the current proposal that we're having for Red Bull is $3.90 across the board, right?
Yeah, but we don't know the cost of Fremont to run it.
You just said
That-
375.
The rate, but we don't know their costs, how many users they have.
Can you guys all speak into the
The water.
microphone, of this.
sorry. We don't know their
Mayor,
facts
can
and
you come up to
circumstances.
the microphone
I
too?
mean, look, this is out of my element, that's kind of why I bring it, Jessica up here, she's an expert when it comes to, the way water, water utilities work, but my point is that you can't go to one jurisdiction, especially out of state, and just say that the rate should be the same necessarily.
That's correct, and just for the council's knowledge, my name is Jessica Lynch, I'm with Baker Tilly. The mayor also brought up Columbus Water, which I actually did personally work on, and it does have a multi-tiered structure. It went through the IURC, there are 3 blocks, and it's a declining block rate structure. So just wanted to let the council know that for your information. Also as well, in referencing our memo, the mayor had clearly pointed out on page 3, the objectives. These are our assumed objectives by management, since we had reached out and asked for additional information and questions, and were not provided with any of that information to be able to determine the cost basis and if this was actually how that was being allocated and determined. So the last page of our letter shows kind of, I guess, page 5 and 6, all the things that we were asking for just to be able to verify this proposal. So we weren't provided any of that information to be able to go through and look and provide a second alternative on a cost-based analysis.
Yeah, and the mayor was mentioning that, the rate before you was done on a cost of service basis, but I guess that's the question that I would love for Reedy to answer, and perhaps, because, Jessica can speak to this more than me, but, if you look at the Baker Tilly reports, they go through, they allocate the cost of the operations, the total cost of the operations for the water, and go through and figure out what that is based on some of the factors, if you want to kind of talk about that.
And I know the Reedy report allocated the operating cost based on department. What you usually see typically for our water rate making, that you see also in the American Water Works Association Manual 1, which is a guide for water rate making, it usually allocates those operating costs based on capacity factors, and that's what helps determine who's putting those larger demands on your water system. So, because a lot of times infrastructure for a water utility is based on peak demand and not average demand, whereas Red Gold is ratably pulling water from the system. There's more infrastructure in place to support those residential users and other users than the one main that's going to Red Gold. But so the use of those capacity factors is what helps to kind of narrow down some of that subsidization across customer classes. That's the reason behind those. But we weren't provided any of that information. So I'm not aware if Reedy did that or not, because it wasn't provided to us. So that's just one of our questions. Thank you.
I was gonna say, you're not Reedy, so.
Doesn't matter to me. If you want to-
Good evening, Caitlin Schaefer with Reedy Financial Group. To answer I think the glaring question is, a cost of service was not completed. So what we did from our standpoint is we came in, we looked at the city as a holistic approach. Of course, like Mayor said, we help with the financials for the city, the utilities, TIF, and we're looking at all of the impacts coming in. So when we're looking at the utilities, we were like, okay, we have these projects. We're trying to figure out how we're going to afford O&M, extensions and replacements, pilot to the city to help with SDA 1 impacts. We're looking at a number of things. So, okay, we want to be mindful of how much we're impacting residential, of course. And so once we did like an across the board, it was like, okay, this is what the impact is to residential. It's high, of course, especially when you take into consideration water plus sewer. So what's our options? Okay, so if we're not looking at residential, let's look at all of the other meters. You guys have a classic declining block rate structure.
one of the ideas of that rate structure is to promote economic growth. Absolutely, we acknowledge that. But that naturally causes subsidization. So let's look at how can we shift some of that burden away from the residential. It wasn't a targeted act. It was, let's look at shifting, and the result come as our report shows. There was mention of allocations. Those allocations were really just for, let's look at the utility. They're for discussion purposes, because like I said, we did not do a cost of service. We didn't look at capacity allocations. We looked at how much consumption is used. Let's use a more simple approach, and what does that do, and how does that impact every single customer. So that's kind of the backstory of how we got to where we were. We did look at a simple across the board with your current rate structure, but when you look at that final block and they're only paying less than $1, I feel like there's an obvious shift. And so we looked at one rate block. Keep it easy, keep it fair. So that's an explanation of where we came from with our proposal.
Are there any questions for her? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brian Reichert, I'm CEO of Red Gold. I really hadn't planned on speaking today, but the mayor did such a good job of coming up and turning around the facts. I thought I ought to get up and address you. I'm very disappointed. You know, thought I was a backer of the mayor, but he likes to push his way in and take the facts that he likes to take. I know a lot of people, including Red Gold, are worried about the Okra grant. When we first found out about it, we asked the mayor about it. Can it be postponed? What can you do? He didn't answer us. Thursday night, hey, we'd like to know, because we don't want Elwood to lose that Okra grant. I still don't know about that Okra grant. Yes, we bid a lot of stuff out. You know, every once in a while we've got to rebid it. You know, now that the Iraqi war is sort of slowing down, maybe things are going to get cheaper. I don't know. But I guess what I want to know is why the importance of this. Can it not be voted on? I don't know the answer. Can it not be voted on tonight, separate? Does anybody have the answer?
It can be.
Yes.
Well, why is it the mayor wants to tie that in with this ordinance? I think everybody wants to tie it in with this ordinance because he wants you guys to pass it. He's been very, very unfair to Red Gold. He hasn't told us what was going on. We sort of found out by Matt being up here. That's not how you run a town. Other people are going to find out about this. And it's not the way you do it. He's talking about, well, gee, Red Gold uses the exact same services. I don't know, you're not down in my territory putting new water lines in like you have to at Dooleyville. I don't know why the town's buying $1 million worth of water meters. I'm sure they have a good reason, but they're not buying any water meters down at my way, not on my property. We're doing what we can to participate and help Elwood grow. And here's the one I love. When you ask you, did you get the Reedy report? Well, of course you got the Reedy report. Did you read the Reedy report? Of course you read it. Well, you looked at it. Hell, I've read it about 5 times. I still have no idea. That's not my training. That's why I brought somebody else in. I'm not asking you about the rate increase tonight. All I'm asking you is table it. Obviously, a lot of people, we don't understand it all. They said, no, we didn't have time to do that real important thing to find out what's equitable. I've got what's acceptable. Let's just put them all the same and let Red Gold have it all. Several water meters. We get great service from water from the town. As far as I know, we don't cause any problem. We really appreciate what we've got here, but I just really don't appreciate what's happening with what all the mayors said. I'm sorry I raised my voice, but I've worked real hard to grow Red Gold where it is. We're one of the largest employers, one of the largest taxpayers, and unfortunately, we're one of the largest water users. If I could cut my water back, I could. Do you know how we run Red Gold during the winter? Have you seen any of those rail cars come in? Sometimes 7 or 8 a day. That's full of California tomato paste. We take that tomato paste and we add water to it to make ketchup, pizza sauce, tomato juice. And what's tomato juice made out of? 97% water. I don't know how we're going to explain that to Walmart. Our water bill's going up, therefore we got to raise the price of tomato juice. So we, like I say, we're doing everything we can, and I think we've been very responsible citizens. So what I'm asking is you vote on the Okra bill. God knows we don't want to lose it. And I'd like you to table the ordinance tonight and give everybody a chance to really understand it. Because I've read it many times, and I've yet to understand it. And I'd like them to do a survey or a study to find out what the true cost is of water in Elwood and what the cost is that Red Gold is causing. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to address Mr. Reicher's comment about timing and why it's important to Okra. So the process, the way it works is I have to show Okra that we have our matching funds in order for them to give us approval to sign contracts. That's why we're asking for things to move forward today. Is I have to show Okra the loan closing documents before they will give me approval to sign the contracts. That's their process. So that's why you're being asked today. We have a 30-day extension through Okra till July 30th. But our bids expire. But that's the process. I gotta show Okra our bids, our contracts, our loan closing documents, and then they say, okay, you have permission to sign contracts.
And I do want to add to this. So we have taken the approach of looking at what current rates can support right now because we understand that the council is up against making this decision. So very temporarily, the rates can support us moving forward with this bond, with receiving this Okra grant. I do want to make that known. So we looked at bond coverage and we looked at cash flow. Again, that restrains a lot of expenses, assistance with the hydrant rental, and because the city is currently paying that, we're trying to get that switched over. It doesn't help with pilot, and again, the city is going to depend on those pilots, those hydrant rentals switching over, and of course, the utility is going to continue to see inflation. That's why I'm saying it's a very temporary thing. If you do decide to table it, we have proven out that you can continue with Okra, with the bond, as long as it's not completely pushed off to the wayside, because rates do have to increase one way or the other. However you guys see and however you're comfortable with, it needs to happen, but you have a little bit of discretion.
So she's saying like ordinance 2509 is the bond ordinance that pertains to Okra. 2508 is the actual rate increase. So in the rate increase includes the Okra phase could do 2509, and be able to get that through.
So pass that one, and then if we do the table, 2508, that we would table.
And just to add on 2509, right, I believe that was the number, for the bond ordinance, there are additional costs if that one does not get passed. I just want to stress the importance of 2509, the bond ordinance. If that does not get passed, then not only do we, have to rely on OKRA to allow us to have this second extension, potentially a third, but not only do bids become jeopardized, does the contractor hold their bid price, do we have to rebid, do project costs go up? But then also, currently the bonds we have a purchaser on the bonds identified, and their bid is only good until, they are expecting a closing by July 10th. If that does not happen, the bonds get rebid, we can get a higher interest rate as well. So there are a lot of things on that bond ordinance, and I know that had to get delayed. We didn't want to do that ahead of the rate, ordinance as well. I just want to, once again, to Caitlin's point, that's kind of like that has to, well, I don't want to tell you it has to, right? But if it does not, there are, additional costs that will be incurred if the bonds do not get closed. But that's why Caitlin wanted to reiterate, there is a path, albeit a small path of leeway. If the rates don't get approved, the bonds still need to get approved to avoid additional costs, but there is a path that would put strain on the utility in the city, but there is a path.
When did this company pass? 2508? They would have to be within the bonus.
Glenn Murray, Elwood Utility. My concerns are if the contractor doesn't hold the bid. I know how contractors can be sometimes, they can be stubborn, and they've been waiting patiently. They might say, no, we're not holding it, and then if we have to do the process over again, our prices are gonna jump. They might not bid again. If they do, it's probably gonna be a lot higher. So everything is going up. And part of the rates that we're doing is meters. In 2022, we was paying $210 for a 5/8 inch residential meter. Right now, they're like $420. So prices continue to grow up. Our expenses are going up, gas goes up, everything goes up. So that is my concern. We're not guaranteed the price that we have today. That could change, what is it, the 6th?
Yeah, the July 5th.
If we don't get this taken care of on July the 5th, we might be looking at raising the rates more, just to get this done.
And you're talking about the Oakland grant, right?
The whole project, all of it plays into it. The bond is to pay our part of the grant. We gotta pay. We get a grant, but that project, the grant doesn't cover the project. And some of the other things we need to do to stay in compliance. Compliance changes monthly, and they're unfunded mandates. They say, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. They give you no way to pay for it. And to be honest, I feel like I come to work, I get zip strapped, my hands together, and say, now go do your job. I come in tomorrow and it's the same thing. We live this. We don't get to come up one day a month and make decisions. We live this every day. When I go home, I still live this. I can't sleep at night because I'm living this. It doesn't stop.
Are there any further questions from the council for anyone in the audience? All right, do I have a motion motion then to close the public hearing and move to an open regular meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
second by Sammy, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, after hearing all the conversation, how would the council like to proceed with the ordinance of 2508, water and wastewater sewage rate increase? I know it was discussed to potentially table this. Do I have a motion to table this for further discussion? I'll make a motion to table it. I'm asking for a motion to table it. I will make the motion to table it for further discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Does anyone have another motion that they would like to make in reference to ordinance 2508?
Just for those that are here, I think everybody out there has been to several of these, but for any action to be taken today, it will require four votes for that action. That's a majority of the entire council of 7. We only have 5 today, but so it would require 4. If absent that, there would be no action taken on the ordinance. And it would be pushed back to the next public meeting of this body.
Alright, hearing that there is no motion, we will move on to the next agenda item, ordinance number 2509, an ordinance authorizing the construction and addition for water works system authorizing waterworks revenue bonds, series 2026.
And just to make sure everybody understands, this is the amount for the 3.5 million is up to, is that amount. And I did bring copies of, in case anybody wanted just a reminder of what all that includes, which is pretty much the Okra grant with Dooleyville and then meter replacements. So this one, Caitlin, you had sent something showing that we had coverage temporarily, correct?
Yes, I don't know if you need me to go up and just say that, but, okay. Yes, we did prove coverage and cash flow temporarily.
sold, I mean, if we don't close on the bonds, I should say, by July 10th, then this bid would likely expire. We'd have to go through that process again for a new interest rate.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other discussion? All right, do I have a motion to read and consider ordinance, 2509?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance number 2509, an ordinance authorizing the construction of additions and improvements to the waterworks systems of the city of Elwood, Indiana, authorizing the issuance of waterworks revenue bonds series 2026 to provide funds to the payment of the collections thereof, authorizing the collection, segregation, and distribution of the revenues of such systems.
Do I have a motion to vote on ordinance 2509?
Motion.
Motion by Kim,
Second.
second by Sammy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Does this require a roll call vote? Can I get a motion for a roll call vote, please?
Motion.
Motion by Kim,
Second.
second by Sammy. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Everson. Huffman. Keelish.
Aye.
Noon.
Aye.
Tyner.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is ordinance number 2396, second amendment, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Elwood, Indiana, amending ordinance 2396 sanitation trash rate. Is there any discussion or questions on this? If no, do I have a motion to read and consider ordinance number 2396?
Motion.
Motion by Jim, second by Joe. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Ordinance number 2396, second amendment, an ordinance of the Common Council amending ordinance number 2396.
Do I have a motion to vote on ordinance number 2396?
Motion.
Motion by Jim, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Anderson. Aye. Keelish.
Aye.
Noon.
Aye.
Tyner.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
And that concludes our agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to?
Yeah. I'd like to re-vote on ordinance 2508.
You could invite a motion.
Okay, do I have a motion to re-vote on ordinance number 2508?
I would make one action, to table, to decline. Are you wanting to make another motion, Jim? I'm sorry.
Motion to pass.
Okay.
So I have a motion on the table to read and consider ordinance number 2508. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Sammy. All in favor?
Roll call.
Aye.
Nays? Nay? And do I have a motion for roll call vote?
Okay, wait. How many nays were there on the
I'm not
motion?
sure, that's why I asked for a roll call.
Okay, so do you want to do the roll?
I'll make a motion for roll call vote. There has to be a roll call vote,
Yeah.
correct? So,
Okay, Everson. Aye. Keelish.
Aye.
Noon.
nay.
Tyner.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Okay, so now we can actually move forward.
Pass.
Well, he's not reading it.
That's been introduced at a previous meeting. The statute with regard to these talks about that the vote can be tabled, and it can be adopted at the conclusion of the public hearing, which you had. It's also not the same date it's been introduced. However, I would recommend a review of the blanks that are on the last page prior to passage. There is the date of the billing, there is that, so.
Yeah.
So that would have to be, in order for this ordinance to be effective, Jim, you made the motion. The motion should also include filling in those blanks and then a revote with a re-motion, a new one.
Yeah.
Because we remember talking earlier, I think it was the mayor that mentioned we left certain parts of the last page blank. And when would the first bill come and how would it be phased in? So that's still, would have to be penciled in there.
like 12.1, we had talked about kind of pausing that, like, so.
If we're not gonna do a phased approach, then October.
Okay, so September 25th, and that would be October 10th billing.
That's 90 days, right? Approximately.
Yeah, we would be able to put it on August, and that will,
Is that enough time to get it on the July and August bill for communicate messaging?
July,
Yes.
And September?
July and,
July, August, September?
Due in August.
July, August, and then the September billing would be due in October.
You
We
need
can
a motion?
also put stuff on the utility webpage.
Alright, do I have a motion then to complete 12.1 of the ordinance with the date of, what did it say?
so this would be, was held on June 29th, and that this ordinance was duly passed on June 29th. That was the first day. And approved by the mayor on June 29th. So those all three would need to go there. And then 12.2 should be when we want to say that date. So like that would be September 25th.
Can we do October 25th?
We'll do
I mean, the more
whatever
time
you
I think
guys
that people
want.
have to prepare for this, the better.
Do we give them 2 months or 3 months?
I say 3 months.
3 months?
I'm good with that.
I'm okay with that.
Christie, do you have an opinion?
No.
So, is that October 25th?
After October 25th.
Do I have a motion, do I have a motion then to complete 12.2 of the ordinance with the date of October 25th? Giving them 90 days.
Motion.
Motion by Sammy.
Second.
Second by Jim. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then 12.3 is
Will be the same date.
same date. Alright. Do I have a motion for section 12.3 to read that the, apply to bills first rendered on or after, the date of October 25th? I'll make the motion.
Motion.
Second by Sammy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Then vote on it again and say like ordinance 2508 with the added changes
The new amendments.
with the.
The blank filling.
Alright, do I have a motion to vote on ordinance number 2508 with the additional dates added to the ordinance?
Motion.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
second by Sammy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance number 2508, water and wastewater utility increase. Do we need to just do a roll call or do we need to go? Okay. Everson. Aye. Keelish.
Aye.
Noon.
Aye.
Tyner.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Now that, is there anything else? Alright, then that concludes our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Sammy, all in favor?